right. It's August 14th, Thursday. Time is 5:45 p.m. I'm here with Trustee Pete Poli.
Hey, Kevin, what's happening? Thank you so much for having me on. And I just want to say it's the first time I've ever been interviewed for a podcast, so I was just hoping you could be gentle.
Oh, I'm known for being gentle. So, preliminarily, Pete, what do you want people to know about you? Tell us about the real Pete.
Well, I think on the beginning, on the outset of this interview, I do want to take the opportunity, if you don't mind, Kevin, to thank all the voters who helped place me in the position of trustee of the Village of Salem Lakes. Without them, I couldn't be here to representing their wishes, hopes, and dreams for the future of the Village of Salem Lakes. And I want to thank you for doing this podcast and making this possible. But what do I really want people to know about me? Well, first and foremost, I'm a Christian. I'm a conservative. At the same time, I'm a reasonable guy. And most importantly, here we are in the Village of Salem Lakes, which is all us Democrats, Republicans, Independents. Everybody has to live together, work together, and be in the same community. And how do we figure that out the best way forward? So that's kind of like where my mind is at when I'm looking out for the community. But inside of there, I'm a father, I'm an outdoorsman, an environmental advocate, a lover of freedom, and a supporter of food pantries, food banks, and very into helping those less fortunate.
Awesome. All right. So you said you're married, you got kids.
Yes.
What do you do for a living? Did we get to cover that?
We didn't cover that. So I'm a plumber, and sewer, water, septic, that sort of thing. Work for myself, little entrepreneur, and just trying to make my way through the world.
Right on. So, in your role as a trustee for the village, so we're currently sitting in the Village of Salem Lake. So we're in your kingdom, so to speak, right?
Okay, yeah. I'm not a king, but yes, I got you.
So, is this your first day out at the fair?
For this season, this is my first day out at the fair,
Right
yeah.
on. Okay, cool. So, in general, how do you feel about some of the restrictions, freedoms when it comes to property owners' rights? I know that there's been a lot. That's been a big topic of concern in Salem Lakes before you came on as a trustee, and currently, and probably in the near future. What are your general ideas and thoughts about that?
I'd say that the shortest answer on that one is that I think we have some things on the books that definitely need to be revamped for today's views and needs of our citizens. But basically, I kind of aim for when we get the opportunity, because we really haven't changed too much other than the property maintenance ordinance, which we can follow up with on this. But ultimately, somewhere where reasonable rules and personal freedoms can exist right at that line. I'm not a believer of one or two people are bad players, so we all have to live under some ominous rule. I think we need to be judicious before we set rules and ordinances in place. Is something really, really needed? So freedoms first, but we do have to have some guardrails. I get that.
Sure. And so you and Village President Rita Bucher recently championed kind of some major code enforcement changes. For those who don't know, you kind of reined in some of what a lot of the residents were calling like overreaches. You made some restrictions on, if you can't see it, you can't complain about it if it's not within a certain amount of feet. So with all these changes, how have they been working out? What have you seen differently since those changes were implemented?
Well, to the best of my knowledge, our level of official complaints has dropped dramatically that we have to respond to. And a big key feature to that is something that we worked on, which was having some kind of a distance. And we came up with 750 feet. And what does that mean? That means you either have to live within as a renter or property or own property, be a property owner, within 750 feet of the parcel in which you're making the complaint on. And you might say, well, where did that really come from? Well, people were like weaponizing, or at least it seemed as such, our code enforcement ordinance, and we're using it in a way to like get back at people, mostly when they got in trouble themselves for something in a reactive measure. They would then feel slighted and want anybody who had their same condition in the village also cited, and then they would ride around, and it turned into this great big problem last year that really was the lead up to us working through this. So the 750, you think about it, it's 750 feet away. How clearly can you even see what's going on? And so it seemed like a really good number. And obviously, we've been running with it for pushing a year now. It seems to be working pretty good. The other big change we made, which was really important, was in the past, once a code enforcement officer was called, say just for tall grass or something like that, and an enforcement officer arrived at the site, well, then that officer could just add anything that they saw that was against our ordinance. And that was really not, I think, the intention of a lot of people who lodged specific complaints. So we changed it to only what the item is that's complained about. There's a few other pieces to that. And there is one caveat to the 750, and that is any village board member can lodge a complaint anywhere in the village without the 750 being applied. And you might say, well, that's somewhat Orwellian or whatever you might consider it as. But the design was, let's say that your neighbor or the person that you were complaining against, you were fearful of them, whatever the case may be. Well, then a village board member could fill it in and turn it in on your behalf after meeting with you and reviewing the situation if they saw it to be warranted. So it also created, basically a kind of a safety net if needed. And I certainly hope I believe all the board members are sticking by the original structure and build of that concept. So currently things seem to be working to the best of my knowledge pretty well with that.
So if I live in the village and on my commute to work every day I see a house that's got debris and garbage, but I'm not within the 750 feet, I can call you and you can go out there and look and use your discretion whether you make a formal complaint or not. Am I understanding that right?
You are, but the real design of it is more for being one of those neighbors within 750 feet who's not comfortable or might feel scared to lodge a complaint. I don't know if the framework's really designed to, you drive by it and it bothers you for your 2.7 seconds passage. It's more of somebody who lives close and maybe they're fearful of that neighbor or something like that. That's more of the design of that piece.
Sure. So, Pete, are you a hugger? Are you like a hands-off guy? How do you express affection with friends and family?
Kevin, that's a little bit of an odd duck question, and we're using one singular microphone and sitting really, really close together, and maybe we're kind of coming to a new level. I'm really not too sure, but I guess I just have to wonder how in the world you even came up with that question. But hey, let's go on to the next one.
All right. So, talking about the Village of Salem Lakes government, what topic do you feel like one is the most pressing issue that you want to get involved with as soon as possible?
I would say housing, but specifically accessory dwelling units, and what could those be? Like Chicago has an ADU ordinance, but instead of the word accessory, they use additional in place of the word accessory. And if you look that up, it's basically a coach house, and some people say coach house. What's Pete talking about? Well, really, really old homes had buildings like a garage, but for the horse and carriage. So that was a coach house. Usually had living quarters above it, kind of thing. And any ones that happen to still exist, could be converted. This would be the same for maybe a garage. Could be a basement that gets finished. But as long as anything that have proper exits, for safety, there'd be some kind of framework for proper, safe, healthy living conditions. But ultimately, what could that do? That could open up additional housing without adding infrastructure, without having to add sewer, water, whatever it might be, electric, roadway, and additional plowing. None of that would really come into play because we would use existing properties, residential units that would then potentially add, like for example, a tiny home in the backyard. This is really popular across the country, and it doesn't just help people who need maybe slightly less expensive housing than what's out there, because what's out there is really hard to afford, like say under $30 an hour right now, and it could also. What's the flip side of that? Well, let's just say that you own your home, you and your family, and you're having trouble getting by, but you could create this space, and maybe that family member or whoever that might be can afford a certain amount, and that amount helps you with your finances. It helps them with a place to stay, and it kind of almost falls into the concept of the European model. You could say grandma and grandpa can help raise the children while, their adult children go to work and make money. Anything like that is completely and totally possible. So I think that there's really room for that, not just here, but it's happening all across America. And honestly, we're real late to the party by not having that in place already.
So would a mother-in-law suite, would that fall into the category of what you're talking about?
100%, because anybody who's even looked into elder care of any kind, including like just, using the words nursing home, whatever it might be, if somebody just needs help, they can't live alone anymore, but they still have a level of independence to them, that's a perfect example. If you look into what the cost of that is, my own father went through that. And as a reasonably priced spot we had him in, a few years back, we were over $7,000 a month. In some places are $15,000, $18,000 a month. Obviously, there's care included in that, certain levels of care. But the point is that housing for somebody who's now retired and maybe doesn't have any kind of retirement, that's a real problem. And families can help to work together and combine and not be against ordinance if they'd like to have some separate spaces for that arrangement.
Sure. Are you more of a television guy or more of a movie guy?
Ooh, I would say I'm definitely more of a movie guy, and along those lines, I'm always quick to tell people my favorite movie, my escape, that brings me back to my childhood is Goonies. Just absolutely love the Goonies.
Do you read?
I do read, and my favorite book, that I can recall, is one that I think a lot of people hated in high school, and it's The Old Man and the Sea by Ernest Hemingway. I just really love the story, the fight between the old man who still had it in him, and the monstrous fish that he was able to land, and the whole piece of that just is very compelling to me.
Awesome. I'll have to read the Cliffs Notes because I don't read. Okay, so we're getting into budget season, right?
Oh yeah.
So how are you going to approach the budget? Workshops? I mean, tell me what's going to happen or what you want to see happen.
Absolutely. So you're right. We are coming up on the budget workshops that are starting here in September, and to the same time every year, roughly speaking. And my approach is going to be, one, to be a careful approach. There's only so much money to be able to be used. There's a lot of things that have to get done annually, that are taken care of by the village, from snow plowing to fire and rescue and everything in between, administration. And we need to be respectful of the money that we have, make sure we're spending it wisely. And and if there's not enough to go around, which we can't really say at this point until we work through that, but then maybe there's some places where we're going to have to try and trim a little bit here, a little bit there to make it come together. But I'm not in favor of borrowing for today against our tomorrow. We have to figure out how to live today within today is how it has to happen.
Sure. All right, another weird question for you. If you were a new addition to a box of crayons, what color would you, Pete Poli, be?
Well, I'm going to say that I'd be something along the lines of tasty tree-licious, like a deep forest green crayon with layers of dark greens. And if I couldn't be that one, I'd be Don't Tase Me Bro Brown, and I think that one kind of explains itself.
Do you trace that back to your outdoorsy persona, the green?
Absolutely, yeah. I definitely love the outdoors, hunting, camping. My kids were both through Scouts. They both became Eagle Scouts at a lot of times outdoors, going from anywhere from Florida, High Adventure Sea Base, through Boundary Waters trips and beyond, Philmont Scout Ranch, and so yeah, the outdoors hold a special place to me.
So how do you want to see Salem Lakes in 5, 10, 15, 20 years, the near and distant future? What do you envision in a perfect world, the village of Salem Lakes?
Well, I think it looks similar to today, only with really responsible growth that aligns with the community's interests, each and every step of the way. That's really what we need to do. It's because here we are, we just happen to be village trustees, but we represent you, the listener, who happens to be one of our residents, or maybe you're considered moving to our community, and what is it that you want to see happen? We do have a lot of open land here. It's been that way for some time. what becomes of that, and how do we place it? How do we make sure that we don't kind of like do a shake up in a can and dump it out concept, and do a more well thought out, have forward-looking layout to make sure that it's going to work now and work in the future.
So, like many people, I've lived in the city of Kenosha, right in the heart, high-density urban area, and I've also lived in Summers, which is a similar community to Salem Lakes, where it's very rural. Right now, obviously, Salem Lakes is a very rural community, and I think, would you agree with me that most people who live there want it to stay that way?
Absolutely, and maybe I didn't do a good job of saying it, but I mean, we do have this open land, and people do hold that close to their hearts. Sometimes somebody plants a whole field of, say, sunflowers, and boy, we all love how that looks, and that rural feel. Here we are at the fair, right? And the fair, really encompasses that 4-H feel, that farm heritage. We've got families here, 4th, 5th generation, farm families, and we need to find a good balance between rural and proper, maybe even revamp of downtowns, so we don't have to touch any of that. Maybe, again, precision items added, business types added in proper locations where it makes sense, and other areas where it doesn't make sense. Well, then let's try and not do that. I'm only one voice of 7 when it comes to any vote, but that's where my heart is at.
So the future of Salem Lakes would still be mostly rural community.
To my vision, I would like it to see it stay that way. Yeah, we're between Chicago and Milwaukee. It's true. You could say to yourself at some point, somehow, some way, we're Chiwaukee if we're not that already. But how do we keep our particular community, keep that rural feel? I think it's by being vigilant and trying to be balanced.
To leave on a unprofessional note, if you could have any superpower, what would it be? And keep it PG-13, Pete.
Well, I appreciate the heads up on that, Kevin. I really do. But I would say to travel through space and time, it would be an adventure that is out of this world for sure. Maybe meet past figureheads of society to religious figures, like think Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, and when the Wright brothers first took off, to, hey, maybe be there right as before the words were written down in the Bible. I mean, just check it all out, and that would be the coolest thing, to be able to witness major events and occurrences and figureheads, both religious and public, across the board.
So now that you said that, though, I'm going to have to pin you down.
Oh boy!
So you get to.
I'm not a total history buff, but go ahead.
You get to either choose a person, living or deceased, or an event that you would, if you only had one choice to go back in time, or even current time, you could meet somebody or witness an event. What would you pick? What comes off the top of your head?
The top of my head, witness an event,
or person,
or meet a person. Boy, gosh, I'm trying to think here. I think it'd be pretty cool to be here and see, and maybe see the Mayflower come ashore, and crazy enough, if the story I mean is crazy enough that actually my wife's grandmother traced their family's lineage all the way back to the Mayflower. We have like that all laid out. It's pretty cool. Yeah, so I think that'd be, just off the top of my head, and there's lots of other great places, times, and things I think could be applicable. But that would be something.
Where we're going, we don't need roads. And that's how I'll leave it. Thanks, Pete. Trustee Poli, thanks for meeting. Thanks for answering these tough and goofy questions. If people want to get a hold of you in the village, what's your village email?
PPOLI at thevillageofsalemlakes.com. And you can also, you don't have to remember that, you can go right to the village website, and there's a page where you can click on and get the information for each one of the village trustees and staff, and be able to contact us. And Kevin, I have a question for you.
Sure.
And I know this is an interview of you and me, so with your permission, is it all right to ask you a question? All right. So just because this seems to me like, is this your first dive into the world of podcasts and interviews, like here at the fair, and I guess we'll start with that.
Yeah, I wanted to think of something creative to do while I'm at the fair, and this is the best thing I could think of. I've tossed around the idea of doing a permanent podcast, but if I did it, I would do it right. I would do it live. I would have a consistent schedule, and I'd allow people to call in live to ask questions and stuff. And that's not something I have the time for right now, but I'm always willing to explore that option.
Well, and it basically answered kind of where I was headed with, was if you thought that you're going to dive further into this world of podcasts and interviews, and I think it could be really something special for you, and I'm looking forward to it, and I hope your time changes or whatever it is needs to happen that brings that to fruition for you, Kevin, and thanks again for having me on.
All right, Pete. Thanks, buddy.
Thank you.